Introduction, Preface of the Universal Numbers Group, UN Group, Full Recurrence Architecture. The Universal Numbers Group, UN Group, Full Recurrence Architecture is presented as a unified model of eclipse order, a framework in which solar eclipses are not treated merely as isolated astronomical events, nor merely as members of simple periodic cycles, but as participants in a deeper structured system of recurrence. In this architecture, eclipse order is expressed simultaneously through sequence, grouping, spatial placement, recurrence intervals, pair relationships, and numerical structure. The result is not only a theory of repetition in time, but a doctrine of organized landing, patterned return, and layered correspondence. At its widest scale, the UN group architecture proposes that eclipses belong to a full wheel-based order divided into groups and zones. The architecture distinguishes between odd and even systems, purple and pink sectors, numbered landing regions, and an ordered FMC sequence that governs how eclipse positions are tracked. In this view, eclipses do not simply recur after a known interval. They recur into an ordered framework of spatial destinations. The wheel is therefore not merely an illustration of recurrence, but the visible map of a larger spatial temporal structure. Within that broader wheel, the UN group architecture presents recurrence as internally organized by more than one cycle. Saros relationships form one level of order, but they are not treated as the whole system. Metonic structure, synodic month separations, FMC cycling, group boundaries, and zone assignments are all presented as additional layers of recurrence. The architecture, therefore, does not reduce eclipse behavior to a single periodic law. Instead, it proposes that eclipse order is layered, with several coordinated recurrence systems operating together. One of the central principles of the UN group architecture is that recurrence is not only temporal, but also positional. This is one of its most distinctive claims. The model proposes that eclipse events land in numbered zones and that those landings are meaningful parts of the architecture rather than decorative plotting choices. In this way, the architecture transforms eclipse recurrence from a matter of dates alone into a doctrine of space-time order. An eclipse is not only something that happens again, it is something that returns into a structured field. The architecture also contains a second major distinction: the difference between the eclipse structure as presently observed and the eclipse structure as fully realized. This appears in the red-green logic of the model, where one set of eclipse dates is associated with present NASA-observed occurrences and another with dates that the architecture treats as structurally meaningful but not presently realized under the accepted framework. In this respect, the UN group architecture is both descriptive and comparative. It describes the observed system while also proposing a fuller structural field behind it. That fuller field is tied to one of the most ambitious propositions in the UN group doctrine, the 12.89-second hypothesis. Within the architecture, this proposition functions as a completion principle. It is not a decorative claim and not merely an add-on to the wheel. It serves as the explanatory key for why the visible recurrence system appears only partially realized under the present model and why the full red plus green architecture would become structurally complete under the adjusted condition. Whether accepted or contested, this proposition occupies a central doctrinal role because it links the observed recurrence world to the completed recurrence world. Inside this larger architecture, the UN Group AGT appears as one especially concentrated and communicable revelation of the full system. Where the broader recurrence doctrine lays out the macro architecture of zones, groups, FMC sequence, and recurrence laws, the UN Group AGT isolates a selected subset of eclipses and shows how the architecture can condense into a local high-symmetry form. In the AGT, 39 eclipses become 20 pairs arranged into 3 waves around a special center, and those waves are then expressed through duration convergence, zodiacal placement, wheel geometry, connector totals, and digital root arithmetic. In this sense, the AGT is not separate from the full recurrence architecture. It is one of the clearest local windows into it. The UN Group full recurrence architecture is therefore both global and local. Globally, it describes the full eclipse order field: groups, zones, recurrence, observation, and completion. Locally, it reveals places within that field where the structure appears in intensified form, especially through pair and wave symmetry. That dual character is one of the architecture's strongest features. It claims not only that eclipse order exists, but that it can be seen at different scales, in the total system and in selected internal formations. Another defining feature of the UN group architecture is that it is intentionally both empirical and symbolic. On the empirical side, it appeals to eclipse dates, Saros identities, timing relations, astronomical longitudes, wheel endpoints, and measured connector totals. On the symbolic side, it interprets those relations through recurring number motifs such as 1, 2, 3, and 3, 6, 9, along with the broader themes of symmetry, order, and completion. In this respect, the architecture does not present symbolic meaning as a substitute for astronomy. Rather, it presents symbolic meaning as an interpretive layer built on top of a structured recurrence system. The architecture asks first to be seen as a system of order, and then to be considered as a possible sign of deeper coherence in the natural world. For this reason, the UN group full recurrence architecture may be approached from several directions. It may be approached as a recurrence model in astronomy. It may be approached as a wheel and zone geometry. It may be approached as a mathematical structure of sequence, grouping, and digital root relation. It may also be approached philosophically as a proposal that hidden order may exist beneath what standard cataloging alone makes visible. These are not necessarily separate readings. They are layered ways of entering the same body of work. What gives UN group architecture its identity is precisely this layered coherence. It is not merely a collection of diagrams, nor only a list of computed values, nor only a symbolic interpretation. It is a doctrine of recurrence in which wheel, zone, FMC, group, pair, wave, connector, and number all belong to one ordered framework. Its claim is that eclipse recurrence may be more than periodicity. It may be architecture. The purpose of this work, then, is not only to present eclipse patterns, but to frame a complete doctrine of eclipse order, one in which recurrence is grouped, sequence is meaningful, landing is spatial, structure is layered, and selected high-symmetry formations such as the UN group AGT reveal the deeper logic of the whole. Whether studied as astronomy, number structure, symbolic geometry, or a synthesis of all three, the UN group full recurrence architecture presents itself as a serious attempt to describe a deeper and more comprehensive order within eclipse phenomena than standard presentation has yet fully recognized. In that sense, the UN group full recurrence architecture is both an explanation and an invitation, an explanation of how eclipse recurrence may be structured across multiple scales, and an invitation to consider whether the visible universe may contain more layered order than surface periodicity alone reveals. It is a doctrine not only of recurrence, but of recurrence made intelligible.